check, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime.
All right, just getting started here.
You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always? Hey, and with a straight face, you're gonna tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom. All right. And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault
Hope
of
everybody's enjoying this intro. If you can let me know you can hear me
a member of the
and
worst period,
the background
ever.
audio. Let me know, please, as we start this
the greatest country in the
today's
world.
live. Please confirm that you can hear me or not.
Yosemite?
Welcome to today's live. As I get people to join, we're going to be talking about a really interesting topic today, or at least I certainly think so.
We stood up for what was right.
The TikTok deal and what's happening.
We fought for moral reasons. We passed
and hopefully you guys
struck
can
down
read
laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on
prompts.
poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chests.
Can you guys hear me?
Great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy.
Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.
We reached for the stars.
Got a new setup today, so I want to make sure people can hear.
Acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed.
It's one of the such
by
a great
men, men who were revered.
Can you guys hear me?
First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one.
Let me know if you can hear me, please, as we listen to this intro. As
America
this
is not the greatest country in the world anymore.
Anyone, please let me know. Can you hear me? Confirm you can hear me. Thank you. All right. All right, so that was the intro. As we get this live started, I'm going to be taking guest callers. Excuse me, guests. I want to know what you think about today's topic. Hopefully everyone or most people understand what's going on with the possible takeover of TikTok, or, you know, it being sold to a group of U.S. investors. So that's what we're going to talk about that today. Awesome. Thanks for the great audio quality. If it's too loud, let me know. I do have a new mixer here, so I'm able to really adjust things well for both the guests that are on the line and myself, and of course play some cool sounds, you know. I know it's kind of nerdy and geeky, but you know, sometimes you need to do things. If you're gonna you want to block people out, right? If they're gonna cuss too much, you need to have some controls. So I'm pretty excited. I'm also broadcasting live on TikTok as well. And we're going to get this live started. It seems like we're getting more and more people in here. So today's topic, which I can barely see myself, and people let me know if this prompt, it's really weird about these prompts in TikTok. When I design them, they look like they fit my screen really well, but I saw some comments yesterday that they were getting cut off. That looks really big on some people's screens. So I don't know if everybody can read it, and maybe even my head's in the way and I have to move my head out of the way. Who knows? All I can do is rely on you all to help me with that. So is TikTok being seized by sycophants? Actually, the pronunciation of that always gets me a little bit off kilter. And are we witnessing the formation of corporate social state media? Maybe you guys have a better name for that, corporate social state media. Thanks for the likes. It helps expose this live to more and more people. And Yesterday's live didn't have that much reach, but the prior lives have been awesome. So I want to take some guests on the line and talk about this issue with TikTok being sold or forced to sell its American operations to a group of US investors. And this is really, really disturbing because if you're paying attention at all to what's happening in social media and who is owning social media or who's controlling social media, you're going to see some really common themes. And it's going to get scary because if you control media in the past, normal traditional media, you get to control the narrative. And now we're getting to a point, not even now, in the last 10 or 15 years, that's changed dramatically. We're not just talking about traditional media, we're talking about social media because it's even more powerful, especially to the millennials and Gen Z. It's a really powerful tool. You're able to manipulate people, tell them what to think, or even provide so much misinformation that unless you're really paying attention, you don't know what's going on. So when we talk about this potential sale of US operations, and we still don't know, is it going to be a separate app? Is it going to be the same app but only reaches an American audience? There's not a lot of details, but it seems like, let's talk about who the ownership structure is for this TikTok deal. First of all, what you need to know is Oracle. So you think Oracle Corporation, a big technology company, it makes sense that they take over. But we're really not talking about Oracle as a corporation. You're really talking about Larry Ellison. He is Oracle, right? He's sort of a cult of personality for Oracle as a company. And he has been a sycophant of Trump. And if you're MAGA and you're watching this, pay attention closely because you're going to think that, you had Musk, who is a backer of MAGA, or what I like to call dark MAGA, take over Twitter and X. You already had prior to that Mark Zuckerberg, which is his mentor is Peter Thiel, which was the co-founder of PayPal and a really dirty actor in terms of politics. Also seemingly backed a Trump backer, sort of. And then, of course, now you have Larry Ellison or Oracle taking over the algorithm from TikTok in the future. Now, what does that mean? Now, there's also some, before I get to what does that mean? You also have Silver Lake Partners, which is a private equity investment firm that's going to have board seats on the board. So there's 8 board seats, Oracle, Silver Lake Partners, and then you have Fox News and Rupert Murdoch and his son, Lachlan Murdoch. And then, of course, you have Michael Dell and Andreessen Horowitz. They're also a large Silicon Valley firm that is invested in many social media projects. So this is a really tight network of people that looks like that this sale is going to go towards in terms of TikTok being under control. And that's why I'm calling it corporate social state media. And if you have a different name for it, let me know. This is what I'm calling it so far, because if you know my channel, I'm all about eliminating corruption from the political system. Like, that's the reason I created the channel, to see if I can do anything about eliminating corruption from government. And most of us, whether you're MAGA or liberal or anyone in between, if you're paying attention, we essentially have a corporatocracy where corporations have more power and more voting power, more influence with our politicians than we do as a representative democracy, right? Where representative democracy is supposed to represent the people, by the people, for the people. But we all know, while we're technically a representative democracy or a constitutional republic, in practice, we're actually more like a corporatocracy or a plutocracy, where you have just wealthy people with incredible amount of influence. And controlling media and controlling the narrative is nothing new. So I'm not talking about anything new here. What I'm talking about is something different or an evolution of what's happening with how we get our information. So you have someone like me who is a fierce independent that gets to speak my voice and hopefully able to broadcast that on equal terms, whether you're a right-wing influencer or a left-wing influencer or someone who's dead set in the middle like me. You hope that the algorithm is able to promote everybody equally based on how many likes. So please hit the like button, please, gifts, badges, whatever. The more you do, the better. And hopefully, if everything was being equal, that would be able to broadcast, because we're supposed to have free speech. But doesn't mean you're able to have the free right to broadcast that free speech. So broadcasting free speech and just free speech are a little bit different, right? But if you're running a network like TikTok or like Instagram or like Facebook or any other, or YouTube, you would hope that these stewards of these platforms would just treat everything equally, other than maybe like extreme hate speech, right? When it gets to extreme hate speech, maybe that shouldn't be a thing on social media. Maybe you should get blocked. But that's a different topic. You may believe that all speech should be able to be broadcast equally, but when it comes to social media like this, you would hope that no matter whether it's a right-wing influencer, a left-wing influencer, or someone dead set in the middle, based on people, how they like what you're talking about and how many likes they give you, how long they watch you for, and all these other aspects, you'd be on equal footing. But that's not the case. You just have to look for what happened when Musk took over Twitter and how he amplified misinformation and right-wing influencers, and he de-amplified people from the left. That's been happening on Facebook, has been known for a very long time to amplify misinformation just for hate, because people, when they argue, when they're divided, that keeps people online more often, and they enrich themselves from you spending more time on their platforms and therefore selling more ads, right? So, okay, so yeah, of course, with your username, no doubt you'd be say something that ridiculous as that being seized by sycophants. No, you probably don't even know what a sycophant is. So I'm going to read you the definition in case you guys don't know what a sycophant is, because you believe it's a supporter of whatever politics you believe in, and it's not. So a sycophant is a person who flatters, praises, or behaves in an overly submissive way towards someone important or powerful, usually to gain favor, advantage, or approval. So if you're a MAGA person, you're thinking, wow, our team, our guys are getting control over social media, people that support Trump, you've lost your mind and you're not thinking clearly. You're just so filled with hate or disgust over the other side, what you perceive to be the other side, fighting each other. You don't realize that these people don't care about your politics. All they care about, these billionaires and these corporations, is about controlling and enriching themselves. So if they can control the narrative and divide us more, they enrich themselves more. So while you think in your mind that this is benefiting you, it's not. Because if you think it's benefiting you, then you're not an American, and you don't believe in the Constitution, and you don't believe in free speech, and you don't believe in many of the laws and the Constitution of the land, because this goes against everything. When you are a government forcing a company to sell, and then you are dictating who it's going to be sold to, and it's going to be your friends, which is exactly what's happening, or people who you can have a transaction with, which is what's happening with L. Ellison and Silver Lake Partners and Michael Dell. This is not about that. That is fascism. That is when you have someone, a fascist, who is end up picking and choosing his friends. Or if you think that's too strong of a word, it's oligarchy. Just like what happened in Russia in the early 2000s when Putin selected his friends or people that would support him to take over the oil industry or the telecom industry or the gas industry. They basically are deciding as the government who should control each industry. And that's exactly what's happening here. And that is not democracy or self-rule. And if you're a MAGA or a Trump supporter, this does not help you. You think it helps you because, your guys are winning. You've lost your mind and you don't really understand what's happening. And you do need to wake up and understand that it's not going to be beneficial, because you either are a believer in the American Constitution and representative democracy, and you support the Constitution, or you don't. And you think that this is okay, where you could have government entity selecting who should take over industries. So now you essentially have Facebook and Instagram, which is controlled by Zuckerberg, which has been a long ally of Peter Thiel. And just look where Peter Thiel spends his money on politics. Now you also had Musk taking over Twitter and making that a place where hate roams free on Twitter, and the left voices or the middle voices are not being exposed or amplified. They're being suppressed. And now you have TikTok. TikTok is also going away. So is TikTok being seized by sycophants? And are we witnessing the formation of corporate state media? And think about it clearly what corporate social state media means, or what I'm trying to imply that it means. It means that corporations or billionaires, large billionaires in certain small groups of corporations are taking over social media, and they will support the state, whoever is in control, because that's what makes them sycophants. They don't necessarily care. They're just using their money and power to influence politics. And that's the fact of the matter. So that's my prompt for today, is TikTok being seized by sycophants, excuse me, and are we witnessing the formation of corporate social state media? So if you want to give me your thoughts on this, now that I've gotten through the sort of introduction to today's live, again, if you're MAGA or liberal or anywhere in between, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's use this as a constructive educational piece, and you're welcome to join. Keep it constructive, and let me know if you don't believe it's corporate social state media or we're billionaires. Don't make it too much about politics here. If you believe that that government has a right to decide who owns media companies, just start with that. That's sort of going to be my question and my focus to keep this on topic. So we have a couple of waiters. All right, so it looks like we're going to have someone from the right and a Trump supporter, which is totally fine. Let's see what your thoughts are. Keep it constructive, and let me know your thoughts. Like, think clearly, think objectively about this topic, and I'm happy to hear you out. Was it Trump? Trump Prophet?
Very indeed. Bonsoir. How are you?
Good. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
I saw a couple of your comments, so obviously I think you're going to disagree with some of the things I said. So let's hear it.
Well, no, I just have
Okay.
a different take on them. It's
Great.
a glass half empty, glass half full type of situation.
Even better.
I think what you haven't considered, what most people can't imagine, is that there's a number of people who are very serious about accomplishing this change, for which Trump was just a vehicle, the vehicle chosen by Providence, if you will. But we've been waiting for a very long time, and we're very serious people. I mean, this isn't to say we're anti-American. I'd say we're the real patriots. The real patriots, I think, would see clearly that living by a status quo and the ghosts of the 18th century is not sufficient to withstand the world of the now. And I think President Trump's presidency examples that.
Okay. I mean, you're going back to so basically you believe, so true patriot in your mind, if I can extract what I think you're saying, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you don't believe that the founding fathers and their creation of the Constitution applies today.
Well, it had a good run. It lasted for a few hundred years. No republic in the history of this planet, sir, not one, has lasted longer than 300 years. Not one.
How long has the
Not
Roman
the
Empire
Roman-
lasted?
Well, you make my point. That's exactly where we're at. We're at the transformation point between the republic and the empire. That's the time we're living in. And it's the parallels people draw the parallels every day, and it's apt to draw the parallels. But that's where we're at. Rome had a republic of about 300 years. Through a number of circumstances very similar to our own, it transitioned to an imperial model, various imperial models actually. And President Trump, I think, very clearly is our Caesarean figure.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Caesarean figure. What's the definition of Caesarean figure?
Caesareanism, you could say, is a strong man who comes to power through semi-democratic means and is able to transform the system into a stable autocracy.
So would Adolf Hitler fit that?
No,
Why not?
because he was not an authoritarian, he was a fascist.
Okay. What's the difference between
There's a difference.
fascism and authoritarian?
Sure. That's a great question too, and I think it's a key point for people to understand.
Absolutely. That's why I asked.
Fascism, Joe, fascism wants you to be something. It's active. Authoritarianism is reactive. It says you can't do this. Fascism says you will be this. That's the key difference. So within an authoritarian structure, there's infinite room for various freedoms: freedom of religion, freedom of speech, just not unlimited room. That's the difference. And the surest prevention to any type of fascism is an authoritarian government, which is why you know who hated monarchs because they stood in the way. He constantly was at Mussolini's, telling him to get rid of Victor Emmanuel, the king of Italy, because he was getting in the way. And he did, as events proved, he got in the way and prevented Italy from meaningfully participating in the war.
All right, so let me ask you this then. So it is no doubt that at some point empires or civilizations fail. So
100%.
why, but why would someone like you even want it to? So, well, let me ask you this first. Is the Constitution and in technically what it was, a representative democracy or a constitutional republic, is it the best form of government that the world has seen to date?
I think it was a fluke that was afforded us because of our immense, we won the lottery of a country. We had more resources, more room to expand, less vigorous foes to expand against than any civilization in history.
Well,
any country in our position would have thrived. So I think that it was just, you could say it worked, it did work, although not very well, it has to be said. It was atrocious towards certain minority groups, and it was anti-Christian in many respects, but it kind of worked for a number of years, but it's been broken down, I'd say, for at least 20
so if
years.
you say kind of works, so is it yes or no, as much as you can? I'm not going to try
It
and hold you.
works. It works.
It was
Sure,
it the
it
best
works.
democracy, representative democracy the world has ever seen?
No, I don't think that's a fair thing to say. I think the Swedish countries, the Scandinavian, probably have a purer form of democracy than we do. I think that Americans have a really high opinion of themselves. We're not any more innovative than the Greeks or the Romans, or the Egyptians or the Sumerians. Those were great civilizations too.
No one's
And
talking
they,
about exceptionalism here. Like I
oh,
just say,
I'm sorry.
let's stay away from exceptionalism. Right? There's no,
Sure.
I'm
All
not
right.
making an argument that American exceptionalism is actually a thing. I'm just pointing out the fact that if you generally, it sounds like you generally agree that the American democracy has been one of the best forms of government
Sure.
in terms of people, right? Sure, it's had its
Yeah.
issues with racism and with various aspects that have happened throughout history, holding groups of people down,
Warlike
discrimination.
nature.
I'm sorry.
It's warlike nature.
Okay, but let's say it is. So we're generally on the same page that it's been one of the best democracies or the best
Sure.
form of
Yeah.
government that's ever existed. So why would you want that to go away? What do you think is going to actually replace it that's actually better?
It's not a matter of what I want. If you look at history, sir, 95% of all human history, we're living in the exception, not the rule.
That's true.
95% of history has been under an authoritarian ruler.
So
one
why
kind
aren't
or
we
another.
fighting to keep it?
Because there's nothing left to fight for.
That's silly.
Look,
That's so ridiculously silly.
Waves don't serve people. People serve waves. There are certain trends in the history, you could call it civilizational trends or economic trends, that no system can navigate forever. The time we're entering right now, the world we're in right now, demands a change. And either we can adapt quickly and suffer less, or we can try to cling on.
It demands a change, or certain groups of people are trying to force change for their own benefit?
Well, my own take would be that the cart doesn't move the horse moves the cart. So it's events that are almost, I think the one pandemic event we all lived through kind of informed us that we can do very little to impact larger events. Even governments themselves can do very little to impact something. All you can do is adapt to it.
All right, so we have
to
a great comment here from Epic Eclipse. He said, the democracy crumbled when lobbying came to be as big of the rise as it is now. All right, so let me clarify that. So that's because it's a great comment. You could argue easily that if the American political system and its people prevented the amount of corruption from money into politics, that we would not be on the decline in terms of our democracy.
Sure, but that's like saying, see that water, make it run uphill. It's impossible to do. And I want to, just in context, sir, it's a cycle. So you have a monarch, he becomes abusive, they become a tyrant, they're overthrown by an aristocracy, which becomes abusive. They're overthrown by an oligarchy, which becomes abusive, which is overthrown by a democracy, which becomes abusive, and you're back to square one. The
democracy becomes abusive? Where?
Well, look at what you're seeing when you have people who are willing to vote just along a narrow margin to hurt the other side rather than work for some mutual good. I think whether it's the right or the left, it's a failed democracy, and it's only a matter of time
It's a failed
before.
democracy, or it's those people being manipulated, just like fascists would have
Yeah,
done
I mean,
to manipulate them to vote a certain way against their own best interest.
but we see this cycle across the history of the world.
Of
It
course we
doesn't
do.
change.
I'm not arguing with that. I'm not saying there isn't a cycle, but why do you think the cycle has to happen now? That makes no sense. Because if there's nothing more powerful. Hold on one second. There's nothing more powerful than the power of the people. And if the people wanted to eliminate corruption and prevent these forces from taking over, and they were aware of this happening, I would argue, could easily prevent, and we could go on another 300 years, because the founders also know democracy is an experiment. And maybe that experiment will end up flaming out someday. But why, just because it's happened in the past, you're arguing that it has to happen again and it's going to happen now and there's no reversing it. That
Yeah,
behooves me.
but these people who you're quoting as saviors of democracy exulted in the ownership of other human beings. This is a pretty big flaw in their argument, I have to say. They exulted in it. They didn't just accept it; they exulted in it. They loved it. They loved every aspect of the slave system.
Then on 13th President Abraham Lincoln, they eradicated it. So I don't know where you're going
Well,
with that.
I'm talking about the founders, though, the people who came up with this democratic idea.
Well,
They're
at
not
that,
as pure as you may think.
I'm
What I
not
would
saying
say.
they're pure. At that time, and they had an opportunity, like you said earlier, like many civilizations or most would have thrived beyond belief with our natural resources. I understand that. But I think what you're failing to take into consideration is when they had an opportunity, because they were able to move away from the monarchs of Europe, and you had a melting pot of not every demographic, but different cultures
Yeah,
from
it was more
England,
equal than anything else
and they
at the time.
decided, like, hey, this what's been happening around the world. And they were very intelligent, right? They were educated. Many of them were lawyers and they were scholars. And they decided, hey, we want to form something different, because everything that we've learned about and came from in Europe is not working. So, and they brought their baggage with them, right? They brought the times of the world, slavery and other things with them. But they still set up a constitution that said all men are created equal. And it ended up being that way after Lincoln fought for it, right, in the
Yeah,
Civil War.
sure.
So that is why the Constitution came to being, is that a group of founders, very intelligent men, said, we need to create something different. And we're going to call it an experiment. And we're going to create this wonderful document called the Constitution. Now, whether we would have thrived, or authoritarian would have thrived in the North American continent, so far away from everybody in geopolitics, of course, that would have happened as well, even if it was authoritarianism. But those are two different
You're
arguments.
totally right.
Right.
And we were predisposed to some sort of egalitarian government just by virtue of the vast land and the sheer amount of resources. I mean, when you have a country with um, uh, either a struggling economy or a huge wealth gap, you're going to have a despotism. When you have a country that's rich as Midas, it's going to be more egalitarian. Just like, I mean, look at Switzerland. I mean, they're loaded to the gills, and they're one of the probably the most democratic countries in the world with the most equitable systems. But my point is that we can't. You made a great point earlier about, are we changing it? I think that now is the time to accomplish the transition from one state to another, because we can do so, and it would cost our country the minimum amount of pain in the
What
transition.
would that
And I
state
think
look
Trump,
like?
well, first of all, the republic, quote unquote, is always going to be there. We're always going to have three branches of government. No one's ever going to wear a crown. It's just going to be the real matters of government will move behind that window dressing, which you're already seeing.
That's
You're seeing the
corporatocracy
first
or a
stage.
plutocracy, right? Or some
Well, I mean,
variation,
yeah,
oligarchy,
it's
whatever.
already there. I mean, it's just people are refusing to accept it. And when I say kings, the European kings are another example of historical has-beens. They're relics. They're there for window dressing. They're not
Right.
there for any real purpose. I mean, the king powers move beyond that. It's now in a kind of presidential model. But I think Trump has a chance if he can do a third term, which I'm hoping for, because that would be the, I don't want to say the nail in the coffin. That's too brutal a phrase, but it would be the last stroke needed to move beyond purely constitutional rule, to give the executive the latitude it needs to deal with the terrible, terrible problems we're going to be facing.
You call
I
it an
mean,
executive, but that's just masked as authoritarian or fascist, one or the other.
well, there's not fascist, it's just authoritarian.
Okay,
I mean,
that's fine.
yeah.
You may think authoritarian, but then you're moving to the executive. So then you're proclaiming that authoritarians are an authoritarian style of government would last longer or be more, well, maybe you're not arguing this, would be more beneficial to its society than what our constitutional democracy or representative democracy has done.
No, well, I mean, it's not. Look, we can't go back to the past, which was objectively speaking going to be better than the future. I'm
Okay,
sorry, I don't.
let me stop you there. Okay, so you made an argument that people need to accept it. I would argue absolutely fucking not. We don't need to accept it. This is the United States of America. We fought for our religion in a revolutionary war. They fought 2 world
Oh,
wars.
religion's part of this, by the way. Religion
That's
will be
fine, but
part-
we're
it
going to
has
take
be a
that out. Of
fusion.
course, religion is always part of it, right?
It has to be a fusion of church and state.
No, I think that's not what the. So then you're arguing. So obviously you've been arguing that you're not a fan of the Constitution, and constitutional democracy or representative democracy is something that you want to see go away, and that's fine. But I would argue, I'm going to say your line of thinking. It's your line of thinking. And the American experiment and the creation and formation of the United States of America is not based on people just rolling over and saying, accept it, to that the demise of the greatest representative democracy that's ever been, as short as has been 300 years, it's okay. Because that's not the American spirit. The American spirit is we fight for our freedom. That's what the entire culture is based on. Take religion out of it for a moment. Just the simple process of we fight for our freedom. We fight for American values. And you're basically saying it's okay. And but to say you're the real American patriot, if you implied that earlier, I think most people watching this would say you're nuts.
Well, look, I would just tell them to look out their window. And if I could ask you to consider one more thing, host. Look at people talk about like time travel. Think about a human baby to an adult, the journey that goes through. It's not even like the same life. There's so many different lived experiences on so many different levels. And countries are made of people. So it's natural that they're going to act like people. No government in the history of the world, sir, ended the way it began. And I don't mean little changes like the constitutional amendments give us. I mean radically different governments and times that either you change or you don't survive. So I would just leave you with that thought. And I think that there's no bad thing about the Constitution, except that its time is over now. And we can always hold it dear. Maybe our grandchildren will have one again. Maybe there will be more democracy in the future. But that time we're going into is a time of tooth and fang, and we better prepare ourselves for it.
I don't doubt you should prepare yourselves for it. But I still think it's an absurd notion that you believe, poverty around the world has been less today in today's world than ever before. The American world order has empowered democracy to thrive only for 80 years, right? It's only been 80 years to certainly thrive. And you're basically suggesting that everybody should accept that it's going away. Oh, but I have no idea. It's no matter what, it's not going to be something better. So you're going to say it's going to go to something worse. It inevitably has to, because there's been never anything better for its society.
Entropy, man. Entropy is a rule of the universe.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your views.
Thank you for having me. I just thought you have an interesting life, and just, if what I'm saying is correct, is crazy as that might seem, sir, then what you're doing is not it's not liable to cause a lot of success. Let me put it like that. I mean, questioning the fact of these things, which are very specific corporate aspects of the larger process, I would leave you with that thought, because you're a smart guy, and I wish you the best. Thank you for having me, sir.
Hey, thanks for joining. I appreciate having you on and keeping it civil.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, we're off to a interesting start. I appreciate his points of view as much as I think that it's not everything he said I don't believe is incorrect. There's a lot to say that it's hard to hear me. Okay, I'm going to move my mic up now. So you should be able to hear me a little bit better now. Let me know if that's not the case, and I'll speak a little bit closer to the mic. So basically, that last caller paraphrase a few things that he says. Overall, I think his view was that people should understand or come to the reckoning that American democracy is now a failed experiment and it's time to move on now. I would argue you could have that point of view. That's fine with me. Well, it's not fine with me, but that's your point of view. I think you're a defeatist if you think that, and I don't think you are someone that's willing to fight for what American values have been, and to understand that it's not inevitable. It's absolutely not inevitable. It's inevitable if people don't come together, and my number has always been 50 to 7 million people. And it doesn't have to be agreeing to all issues, because how authoritarians or how we lose our democracy is by divide and conquer, right? So 50 to 70 million people came together with the explicit intent to eliminate corruption from our political system and replace all career politicians with temporary public servants. It certainly could happen. I'm not saying it will happen, but if there's 50 to 70 million people, it could, and it probably would. And I think it's worth fighting for. We have the greatest generation of World War II vets, World War I vets, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War that have fought for these things. And you're telling me that Gen Z, Gen Y, and Gen X should just come to accept and let it go? I think it's an absurd notion to think like that. I think it's defeatist, and I think it's un-American. So that's my point of view. So let's see. Again, that was an interesting discussion. I appreciate discussion as much as I think it's, like I said, just not there. So anyways, so we got a little bit off topic, somewhat off topic, because is TikTok being seized by sycophants, right? And this is the process where the last caller thinks that American democracy is going to fail. But the reason it's going to fail is just one reason, is that sycophants, meaning billionaires and corporations, are taking over the ability for us to communicate. So there's no promises that someone like me, as a fierce independent, come December, when Oracle takes over this algorithm, is that you may never see me again on TikTok. I may be gone. You may not be able to even find me. Maybe this is completely suppressed. That's what happens when government assigns corporations to purchase competition, or in this case, media. And that's what's happening here. So if there's anyone who has a different thought on this, so what do you guys think about TikTok being seized by sycophants? Now, if you think that's an overreaction, a sycophant is a person who flatters, praises, or behaves in an overly submissive way towards someone important or powerful, usually to gain favor, advantage, or approval. And that's what these billionaires are doing. I can tell you that no matter who you are on this live stream, that you agree that the billionaires and corporations and special interests and lobbyists, no matter what lobby you're talking about, I see a lot of a certain lobby that pops up on these comments. You could argue, no one would argue the fact, or no one sensible would argue the fact, that our government is being fully taken over by those forces, right? It's being fully corrupted by money, and that we don't have representation for the people by the people. And this is just another way to control that, right? To control the narrative and control whose voice can get out into the public. So let's see if we have anybody else that wants to join. If you want to join, you can hit the request button or go down to the bottom left where you see the pink and blue icon, and you can join the live as a guest. And let's try and keep it as much on topic as possible. Of course, we went a little bit off on a tangent on the last caller, but it's all related to, if you continue to allow a relatively few groups of people or corporations to control all the media, social media, you end up having corporate social state media, where the corporations are acting in the best interest to gain favor with whoever's in control. And in this case, it's MAGA. Some people in MAGA would think like this is good for them because Larry Ellison from Oracle is a sycophant Trump supporter. So is Michael Dell. So is the other potential buyers, because basically the Trump administration is awarding TikTok to a new set of buyers, which goes against any sort of fairness or separation between corporations and government, for lack of a better word. So we got another person that's going to join. Tender-hearted, you're up next. If you can let me know your point of view if sycophants are taking over social media, and you'll be jumping on in just a moment. Welcome.
Okay. Okay. Hi. Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
All right. So I work for a big corporation. So I can't imagine my social media or any kind of media that has to be follow the rules of a corporate. For example, when I'm working, like I do work from home, so I'm on like a Teams chat. we can't talk politics. We can't talk certain things. We can only discuss work friendly things, correct? So I can't imagine my whole life trying to get information about what happened in the world, and it's determined that, oh, well, you can't talk about this, so we're not going to discuss that, somebody set off a nuke somewhere or something. I mean, I think it's detrimental to the American way. I believe in freedom of speech. I think it's the absolute responsibility of the media to call out our government. Without it, we have no democracy.
Well, I I agree with everything now, or most everything you said there. Now, but if we don't have, so most media is controlled by relatively few organizations, and the media that is out there that is either leans to one way or the other, or is a full-on supporter of one side or the other. So you're blaming, no, not blaming is not the right word, but you seem to be pinning it on media, that a media is not informing the American public enough. But I would argue that we, for a while now, ever since the laws changed and how many people or corporations can own media in any given city. It used to be that you used to have no one person could own X percentage of the market in media. That was removed by the Supreme Court back in the 90s, I believe. So I would argue that, so we already know that media is being controlled by various political factions. Much of it seems to be the right, not all of it yet. There is still some independent media. But if the vast majority of people, especially young people, get all their media right here, right on TikTok, where most of they get their news from TikTok or other social media, and all those are already being controlled or manipulated and suppressing maybe certain information, then how else do we fix it?
Well,
I understand. If you can't answer it, I can't always answer that either.
I think the way that it would be solved is just like our forefathers. We go underground. It'll be done in secret. We're going to have to learn behind closed doors. It's going to have to be a word of mouth. And of course, won't be as fast as the internet, of course, but
Well, right now there still seems to be a few places where you have voices can thrive. Reddit and YouTube seem to be those places at the moment, but are they next? I think that's the question I probably would have next after this. If TikTok is going to be seized by these sycophants, and now you have TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook that are basically under control of people that will do whatever the government says, is Reddit and YouTube next? And I would say that's probably, of course they're next. That's what's going to happen next.
right. But once you open the door, then it allows everything else to come in. And yes, I think eventually, if you allow the state to take over one form of media, then I agree with you, it's going to move to the next and the next and the next and the next. So it would just be up to the people that are willing to take that chance and go up. I mean, I don't think we're like North Korea, but I'm quite sure there's people in North Korea that are secretly telling the truth.
Yeah,
And
well,
that,
there's always a flow towards authoritarianism or fascism, whatever term you want to use. Obviously, a little bit different, but once that flow happens, it's hard to stop it. It's like the last caller mentioned. It's like a stream running downhill, river running downhill, and you're right though. The only way to stop it is if enough people stop arguing about these individual issues or cultural issues and understand that this is really a top versus bottom fight.
well, the sad part is Congress has the power to stop it. They absolutely have the power to stop it, but they're not, because I call them bootlickers. That's what they're being. They're afraid of not being elected.
Well, they don't
And
represent the people anymore because the people don't pay them, right? The corporations get them elected. So
yeah, they
they,
get the
they just
money.
answer to their bosses at this point,
Right.
right?
And
Both parties.
agreed. It's not, as far as I hope that we have a chance to elect officials, and yeah, maybe we can revolt simply by not reelecting any one of them and get all new people in there, but that's not going to happen.
It would have to be a
That-
movement first, right? You can't have an individual first. You have to have a movement first that wants to do
Right.
that. All right. Well, I
Right.
appreciate your point of view. Thanks for joining. I hope
Thank
that
you
we're
for
both
having
wrong
me.
about this.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks. All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye-bye. Okay. Then we have Lisa R here. I had to read this comment. So Lisa R from Gen X70 username. I'd rather burn it all down and create something better than live under a dictatorship and oligarchy. Okay. I want to unpack that for a moment because I don't disagree. But the problem I don't disagree with, we don't want to live under a dictator or oligarchy. But there is no possible way you can tear down this system of government and rebuild it to something better. It will never happen. It cannot happen. You need to renovate it within the confines of the walls that you're given. But to burn it down or to tear it down would be the worst mistake ever. And you see a lot of people advocating for that. It's absolute nonsense. The only way the America has ever came in, the United States of America was ever formed in the first place, because it was a green, fresh slate. People came from mostly Europe and other parts of the world. There was 13 colonies, right? And they wanted to do something better. They didn't have the baggage of past history in the United States. So they were able to green slate it or clean slate it and create something better and new. That would never happen when you already have 340 million people populating this land. And outside the native population that was here prior to, it would never happen. You cannot rebuild it. You cannot rebuild something that transformational and start from scratch unless you're actually starting from scratch. So if you think you can rebuild it, you can't. I know in theory you think you can, or it would be nice to, of course, but it will never happen. And now I'm going to go to Jackie's comment because she has it right. The only solution is to organize. And that's what my whole channel is about, is to let people know that we need to come together. There needs to be 50 to 70 million people under the explicit goal to eliminate corruption in our political system by special interests, billionaires, and corporations. If you have 50 to 70 million, which is a lot, it's a big number, but it's a fraction of the entire population. And there are 75 million independents in this country alone, and there's 45 million registered Democrats and 40 million, approximately 39 million registered Republicans, somewhere in that area. There's more people that are independents than there are both parties combined that are registered. Sure, they may lean one way or the other, but people will say it's impossible. It's not impossible. It's difficult, but it's also straightforward. It's as simple as 50 to 70 million people together. That's what I constantly try and hammer home, and that's what I'll continue to do, for better or for worse. I'll continue to hammer home that it takes 50 to 70 million people, and you can change everything. And they can be from MAGA, they could be liberal, they could be anywhere in between. But I think the independents are going to have to save this country and do something different, and they have to organize first and foremost. And the way you do that is probably on digital media. So that's my perspective. So thanks, Lisa, for that comment. Okay, I appreciate that as well, that it was more of an analogy, literally never under dictatorship, right? Appreciate that. But hopefully that my response lets people know who think that it could be overturned or something better. You can give birth to something better than the Constitution and American democracy. You can't. So like the last caller thinks it's the end of the American democracy, or two callers ago, two guests ago, thought it was the end of democracy, and you just have to accept it. I say bullshit. Don't accept it. Organize. Fight against it. Don't allow billionaires, special interests, corporations, and politicians to steal our representative democracy fully. Don't let them do it. It's our responsibility as Gen Z, Gen X, and Gen Y, millennials, to come together and protect American freedom. Like every generation has had in the past has had to protect American freedoms and American liberty and protect ourselves from fascism and authoritarianism around the world. It's very binary, right? So if you have democracy is increasing around the world, you have authoritarianism and fascism declining. Now, if you have democracy waning and getting weaker, you will always have a rise of authoritarianism and fascism. So this is our choice. This is America's choice. 50 to 70 million people's choice. So it's absurd when you think about it. If 50 to 70 million Americans can control the destiny of 8 billion people around the world, because American democracy is the heartbeat of the world, and American power and influence is what, and values, American values, has kept the world the most safe and thriving civilizations around the world that the world has ever seen. And that's only and as flawed as American democracy has been, and as many problems as this experiment has had throughout its 300 years, it has continued to get better over 300 years, with the exception over the last 25-ish years. It has then, or maybe even 35-ish years, it's sort of been on the decline since then. At least that's how my subjective observation on it from being around the whole time. So if you're curious on how we do it, I don't know if you can see it, but so I see a comment. I do have a plan to fix America. It's tinyurl.com/TK Civics plan. You can probably see it up there. You can also click on the link in my bio. You may think it's absurd. That's fine. It's not. It's just 50 to 70 million people. There's a plan, and it attracts, or excuse me, I think it attracts 50 to 70 million people from all walks of the political spectrum. And it's just a decision we have to make. Either we can just sit on our asses, bury our heads in the sand and do nothing, or we can actually do something. I would say there's a lot less pain and a lot less effort actually doing something, which is not even having to do that much. All you have to do is support a plan. And I will spend the next few years, however long it takes, to see if we can get people to understand. I don't argue about issues, about cultural issues in particular, which is what most people do on social media is they're always arguing about cultural issues that divide and conquer. And that's a distraction. So thanks for all the likes, by the way. It really helps, again, expose more and more people to these lives as this channel is getting more and more established. I hope to be able to continue and reach more people. So let me know if there's anyone that wants to join. If you have any thoughts on, is TikTok becoming seized by sycophants? And are we witnessing the formation of corporate social state media? Again, thanks for those likes and any badges. I think there's even some fan club. I'm sort of new to TikTok in the last few months, and I'm still trying to figure out how it works. But you might ask even why, if these sycophants are taking over the algorithm in December, what's going to happen to voices like mine or many other people? But at the end of the day, you can also subscribe on the other channels. So I'd ask you to do so. I'm streaming live on YouTube right now as well. And I think I am anyway. I haven't been able to confirm that. So I'm live streaming is there, and I'll build my audience there, and I'll build my audience wherever I can to try and get the message out there that 50 to 70 million people can bring our democracy, our representative democracy back to the people. It's really not that hard. So no, I ain't seen 15 months ago crying in social media. Sorry, I don't know what that comment's about. So if anyone else wants to join as a guest, and let me know what they think about this group of people. Larry Ellison, meaning Oracle. You know, they like to say Oracle and not Larry Ellison, but Larry Ellison has a firm grip on that company. So it's Larry Ellison, Rupert Murdoch's kids, Silver Lake Partners, Michael Dell, and who did I miss, that are basically essentially going to be taking over TikTok, the algorithm and ownership of TikTok in the United States, if the supposedly deal that's going through will happen in December. So you have to ask, if you want freedom of expression and freedom of speech, this is just another platform right here where it might be going away. Let's hope that doesn't happen, because TikTok does reach young people, and that's what they also want to do, right? People, the sycophants that are trying to gain control over society, not just political control, but obviously enrichment and full control over the narrative. TikTok is so appealing to these people because it has such a large base of Gen Z. And it's the same places where Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk and Joe Rogan, and they've been getting their messages out for years and influencing tens of millions of young minds, and I would say poisoning young minds to blame people for the problems they face in America, versus actually coming together, uniting behind eliminating corruption from politics. So that's my thoughts. 9 new messages. Oh, I'm a little bit behind on the messages, but if anyone else has any thoughts and wants to join, as my voice is getting hoarse from recently getting over a short illness. Luckily, it was short, but my voice is getting hoarse because of that. So thanks again for all the likes and badges. And it doesn't look like anybody else wants to join. I'm going to do another topic tomorrow. I was late to do the live today. Normally it's around 6 p.m. Eastern time or 6 p.m.-ish Eastern time. Today I got started later. I'll try and do it a little bit earlier again tomorrow at that time, and I'll pick a new topic. And I think that's it, unless anyone else wants to join. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next live. And please remember to follow, not just here, but subscribe on that other network. I'm trying to build my audience there as well. And, you know, I don't want to live with regrets. I have children. I want to see them be able to thrive like I have. And I want to see equal opportunity for all. And if you want your future to be better than it was in the past, we have to fight for it. So that means Gen X and millennials, Gen Y and Gen Z are going to have to do something. You can't bury your heads in the sand. You have to stop getting manipulated by all the social media influences manipulating you about individual issues, instead of realizing it's massive control by people in power at the top, corporations, special interests, and billionaires that are controlling how much information you see. That's going to happen on TikTok. If this is allowed to happen, you're going to get a suppression of a lot of voices. And I think it needs to, well, I don't think it needs to. I think I'm doing whatever I can to unite people to say, do something about it. Follow me here on TK Civics, on this channel and on other channels. And how do you get to make change? You start with 10,000 people, and then you get to 100,000 people. And then after 100,000, you go for 1 million. And you know what? Then you start having a pretty good ripple or a little wave. And once you get to 1 million people, then you can go to 10 million people. There's lots of influencers and content creators on social media that do stuff just for entertainment or just to sow division, and they have tens of millions of followers. So if social media can be used as a conduit to be divisive, it could also be used as a conduit to unite people together and to get people to think a little more clearly, stop fighting with one another, and realizing that your life, whether you're MAGA or liberal, is going to get much worse because you're going to be under the control of these sycophants if we allow them to. And if you don't organize behind something, which has to be the corruption behind politics, then it's going to just get worse. So it's a binary choice. You either organize and we do something about it, or we don't and nothing will happen and things will continue to get worse for the average American. You'll have fewer rights. Your rights will be taken away. Your opportunities will be taken away. Your freedom of speech will be taken away, because that's happening now. So that's it for today's live. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow and in future videos. And again, please follow, like, comment, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya. Actually, on the closing, if you haven't heard this yet,
Check, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It
This
costs
is the
votes.
best
It costs
ending.
airtime and
Or
column
intro.
inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always?
Hey.
And with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom. All right. And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real.